I would say use this organ all that you can. Use it to encourage organists. Use it to encourage those who hopefully you are mentoring in your own stakes, the younger generation, encouraging them to play the organ. The instrument is not going to break if you use it. It's good for it to be used. I would say that if those of you who are mentoring young people, give them an encouragement. Use this organ to inspire them. What a joy to have this wonderful instrument. It's been a pleasure for me, and of course I play one of the greatest organs in the world regularly. Okay, a few basic things. The bench does adjust in height, and Rulon, there's a knob on the right side. Don't hesitate to get off the bench to adjust it. It's too hard to turn when you're sitting on it. You can stand on the pedals. Won't hurt the pedals. The power switch is on the left side. Then let's move to organ shoes. Now, some of you are probably playing in your stocking feet and are thinking, why do I want organ shoes? It's easier if I play in my socks. Well, there are several reasons. One is that it facilitates the use of the heel, and we want you to if you don't already, we want you to use your toe and your heel of both feet. And you need to have a raised heel that's about 1 inch high, and you need a shoe for that. Also protection, so you don't stub your toes. And do you see those shoes? Those are organ master shoes. And you'll notice that we've indicated several places you might get them. This is what a man will get if he orders shoes through Organ Master Shoes, and of course they have shoes for women too. And the other reason for using shoes is you want to be able to move freely from note to note. Not only if you slide from one note to the other, you want it to be as legato as possible, but just to get around the pedal board. And you'll find that your feet will seem sticky and unsupported compared to what you have with a good pair of organ shoes once you get used to them. The clue is to get a good pair and then use them consistently every time. Set those shoes aside for your organ playing and use them every time you go to an organ. And then you'll get used to them. The soles need to be leather or something leather light that's thin and does not protrude out beyond the shoe itself. In other words, you don't want a bulky sole, but you don't want a rubber sole. You want something that will slide. So that's why we say leather or leather-like. And the same for the heel. How many of you have heard of this idea of 4 families of organ tone before? This is how we classify the many stops on an organ and understand what we do with them. First of all, if we understand the basic function of the 4 families of organ tone, then if we know what family a stop is in, then we know what function it will help serve. So let's talk about the characteristics of these 4 families. The most important family, as you might guess from its name, is the principal family. And in this handout, you'll notice that it's color-coded. If you'll turn to page 4, for instance, and page 5, which lists all of the stops on the Ogden Tabernacle organ, you'll see that they are color-coded. All of those that are black, in black print, are of the principal family. So looking at the great, which would be, of course, the middle keyboard or manual on this organ. It's the bottom manual on your 2 manual organs at home, right? It's the middle manual here. In other words, the added manual on the 3 manual console such as this is the bottom manual, the choir manual. And the middle manual is the great that you're used to. The manual above that, the top manual or 3rd manual, is the swell that you're used to. So looking at the great, these would be on the middle manual. The principals are easy to see: the sub-principal 16, the diapason 8, the principal 8, the octave 4, the 2 2/3 12th, the 2 foot 15th, the 4 rank forniture, that mixture, And then, of course, the couplers don't apply. And on the swell, the principals are the diapason 8, the octave 4, the octavin 2, and the 4-rank mixture. Right? You get the idea? In the choir, the principals are principal 8. Then we don't find another one until we get down to Preston 4-foot, and then the principal 2-foot. And so on. In the pedal, you see the principal family of tone is represented by the 32-foot resultant, the 16 open diapason, 16 principal, the 8-foot open diapason, 8-foot octave, and the 4-foot choral bass. Okay, so principals have a full sound, and maybe Rulon, play us a couple of chords on the open diapason, 8-foot of the great. So there's the reason that principals are used to build up organ ensemble. They become the backbone of your hymn accompaniments, congregational hymn accompaniments. The reason is because they have a balance. They have the body of the flutes, you might say, and they have the brightness of the strings, all in one rank. And we'll illustrate this in great detail in a minute. Then secondly, the flute family. They are, by comparison, hollow or non-bright. Play that flute on the choir, if you would. See, it has most of the body of the principal, but it lacks the brightness. And so flutes are going to be used for subdued sounds compared to principals, and no way would they provide the backbone that you need for congregational hymn accompaniment. And then the strings, they have brightness, but not much body. Rulon will play the solitional 8-foot, the string on the swell. See, that's the opposite end of the tonal spectrum, if you will, from the flutes. And so I have provided here a bit of a crude visual representation of this. If you imagine the flutes as being on the left, they have lots of body, they're hollow, lots of body, little brightness. And then as we move through the tonal spectrum into the middle, we have the principals, which have the body and brightness. And then to the right, we lose the body in the sound, and the stops become thinner, and we have brightness, thinness without body. And so strings we could characterize as thin or ethereal. And then finally, the kind of oddball family, but it's a delicious family. It's the spice family of the 4 families of organ tone. And that is the reed family. Now, if you look at this case behind you, all of the gold pipes that are, and they're really glorified whistles, they're all principals, flutes, or strings. And we have a term for the principal flutes and strings. We call them foundations, the foundations of the organ. And you can see how tonally they relate to each other, and you'll see more of that in a minute. They're really just glorified whistles. They operate on the same principle as the flutes in the orchestra. If we make an orchestral analogy to orchestral instruments, you see the mouths of the pipes, which is down below the silver part. There's when a pipe is played, there's air that is opened from a valve that's underneath the boot of the pipe and waiting there under pressure once you turn the organ switch on. And when you hit pull the appropriate stop and play the appropriate pipe, that for it to blow, the air will come up and hit that upper lip just of the barely above the opening, still at the bottom part of the silver part, and part of the air will come out the front, and part of it will go up the length of the pipe, which determines the pitch. Of course, the longer pipes are the lower ones. And so that's how most of the pipes, all but the reeds, that is all of the foundations, all the principals, flutes and strings, in other words, of an organ work. They're whistles, glorified whistles. Now, the reed family, the spice family, are quite different. You see that wonderful horizontal tuba, it's called. Can't miss it at the top of the center case. That is one of the many ranks of reeds on this organ. And instead of operating like whistles or flutes with just a vibrating column of air, they have a metal reed that vibrates in the boot of the pipe, like a clarinet, only clarinet has a wooden reed, right? Or oboe has double reed. Or the brass, the reed is the lip of the player, right? Which vibrates. You don't get a brass instrument to sound unless you can, get your lips moving. And then the trumpet or the trombone, whatever instrument itself, shapes that sound of the lips, fortunately, because it sounds awful by itself, and makes it into the sound and the pitches that are needed. Well, so it is with the reed family, which provide maybe at the most 15% of the pipes of an organ. And Rulon, play a few toots. Be prepared. This is a dominating reed. This is the horizontal trumpet. There's a reason it's front and center and points straight out, so it can sound a noble melody above full organ. How about that? Isn't that a great thing to have to finish off this exciting instrument? Okay, all the other reeds are softer than that, and we'll talk about their function in a bit, but they're either fiery or piquant. Now then, let's get back to the foundations of the organ, and I want to take the time to go through a tonal illustration of this spectrum, this tonal spectrum, if you will, this crude diagram that I've made here. And Rulon is going to start with the roundest and hollowest and least bright of the flutes, which will happen to be the Borden on the choir, but I don't want you to worry about them. I want you to listen for this, and he'll move gradually through the flutes, playing a chord on each, as they get a little bit brighter until finally he's into the principals. And then he'll move through the principals to the brightest of the principals and into the strings, which lose more of the fundamental but keep the brightness. And there are 20 of the 51 ranks of the organ that we'll use to illustrate this. They are basically the 8, 4, and 2 foot foundations of the instrument. I'll call out the steps as Rulon plays. So you look and you just listen and look and imagine the eye moving gradually to the right on this diagram as you hear the 20 steps of sound. Okay, here's our first flute. That's to the left. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. See, we're getting a little more brilliance in the sound. Number 6. See, that one lost some of the fundamental, kept the brilliance. Number 7. Okay, now we're entering principal territory. See, it has a little more brilliance and even less fundamental. Number 8. Number 9. 10. 11. These are all principals. We're moving through the principal spectrum to the right. 12. 13. 14. That's that principal he played for you at the very first. That's kind of the middle of the principals. 15. See, that one's a little bit thinner. 16. Thinner and a little stringier still. 17. Now we're into the strings. Still has the brilliance, but has less body or fundamental. 18. Now that one's very soft, so you have to kind of discount that and imagine the same volume, but it's thinner also. And 19. See, the brilliance is there, but it's thinner still. And finally, 20 are thinnest string, which is the slitional on the swell. Okay? So, that's how the foundations of the organ relate to each other. Now let's talk more about function. Having in your ear now, in your mind, the sound of each of the three sounds of the foundations of the organ. We'll first talk about the function of the principals. And for this, I would suggest that you turn to the stop jams, which are on 8 and 9, page 8 and 9. Here you have the stops of the organ, and again, they're color-coded. So the grate is on the right jam, right, on the right-hand page, and the choir, and the pedal and swell are on the left-hand page in the same position that you find them to the right and the left on the organ console itself. And we'll be illustrating with the principal chorus of the Great Manual, because that is the one that is used as the backbone of congregational hymn accompaniment. So, Rulon, if you would first play the principal 8-foot, and we're going to build up an organ ensemble, including principals. This is the kind of sound that will be the backbone for congregational hymns, although you don't have to remember exactly how to build this up because they're set on the preset memories you can use as examples. Okay, so there's the principal 8-foot. Now for congregational hymn singing, we use always, even for soft hymns, at least principal 8 and 4. So here's the principal 8, and he's adding the octave 4-foot to that. Okay, and then for a little louder hymn, one would add the 15th 2-foot. And for the usual congregational hymn, you'd want to have at least the principals 8, 4, and 2. Add the 12th 2 and 2/3, which is also good. Adds a little bit of a little more meat to that sound. And finally then, the full principal chorus of the great, well, nearly full, would be to add the mixture 4 rank. And y'all understand probably what a mixture is. Has, in this case, 4 pitches that are high and add the top or brightness to the harmonic series. And we use, see, he's just playing one note at a time. And they're not to be used alone, but they're to be used with, 8, 4, and 2 and 2/3, and then they provide the bright cap on top of that. Okay, here's the principal chorus, 8 through mixture then. Okay, now see, we're in this sort of sound, if you think about it, you always hear a sound similar to that when the congregational hymn comes on the general conference, don't you? Okay, so what you're hearing is not just the great principal chorus, but that's the backbone, the characteristic of the sound that you hear. You can fill it out by adding some flutes and things, as the preset memories will do for you, and you can use them as examples. Okay, then the sub-principal 16, this would actually be the full principal chorus on the great. You may think that using a 16-foot on the manual just makes it hopelessly muddy, but on an organ like this, when you've got a full principal chorus up through the mixture, if you want to add a little gravitas, the 16-foot principal should be voiced so that it adds that without becoming muddy. I'll play that same thing again. See, it doesn't add mud, it just adds a little gravity to it. Okay, so there's the sound of the principals and the principal chorus, which is the backbone of any solid organ ensemble, certainly of all of your congregational hymn accompaniment in here. Now let's talk for a minute about the function of the flute family. You remember the sound of the flutes. They're subdued compared to the principals. They're hollow and non-bright, as well as being soft. And so you would use them for subdued ensembles. Well, when might you want a subdued ensemble? Well, in your prelude playing, right? When you're accompanying a choir and they're in softer sections, you would use the flutes for flute ensemble. Or if it's really ethereal, use the strings. So let's illustrate the flutes building up a subdued ensemble. Maybe we could do this on either the choir or the swell. Let's go to the choir, which is going to be the bottom manual or keyboard, right? So here's the 8-foot flute again, just for reference. Okay. Of course, we don't have an ensemble when we just have a stop of one pitch, but 8 and 4 would be the soft, subdued ensemble, if you will, the flutes. Yeah, give us that on the swell as well, would you? Now, what will we be using? You can see the blue ones, royal flute 8-foot, traverse flute 4-foot, right? See, similar, but a little bit different. While we're at it, give it to us on the grate, and you can see immediately which stops you'll be using, the harmonic flute 8 and the harmonic flute 4. Yes. Okay, now let's get a little brighter flute ensemble. Give us, add that 2-foot block flute to the choir chorus. Yes, and on this organ we could also add to that, if we really wanted a bright, sparkly, subdued ensemble sound, we could add the larigo 1 1/3, which you see as a flute also. Yes, could add the Nazard as well, for that matter. So that would be the full flute ensemble, if you will, or subdued ensemble on the choir. The tierce we wouldn't normally use in the ensemble. That is used for solo melody colors. So if you go back and take a peek at page number 1 again at the bottom under under B, 5B, item C under the flutes. Subdued ensemble, we've covered that. Another of the function of the flutes, very important, is for solo melody colors. And these will often include the flute mutations. And mutation is probably a new word to some of you. Those are the fractional pitches. Now, if you turn back to page 8 and 9 to the stop jams, you'll see that some of those stops, which we've already mentioned, have fractional pitches. They'll be either 2 2/3 or 1 3/5. And you always use those mutations or fractional pitches with an 8-foot stop, usually of the same family, to provide the fundamental. So, and for solo melody lines. Rulon, if you'd pull the 8-foot Borden on the choir, and the Nazard 2 2/3 foot, and play us a melody. You can tell he's also got the tremulant going. Any of these solo melodies, when you're bringing out a melody line, you can use the tremulant if you want, either with or without the tremulant, and that's about the only time that you should ever turn the tremulant on. Now he's going to add to that the tierce, 1 3/5. So he has flute 8, 2 2/3, and 1 3/5. And see, for several phrases of a melody line that you want to bring out in your prelude, that would be lovely. Now listen to it down low, though. It's not so good below middle C. Most of your melody lines will be above middle C anyway, but the mutations work best from roughly middle C on up. So you get down into the tenor range, and then you begin to hear the pitches independently. It breaks apart, and it doesn't become one beautiful tonal color like it is up in the higher range. Now, you have those same flute pitches on the swell. Let's just take a minute and illustrate them. Rulon, that same 8 on the swell, 8 roar flute, Nazard 2 2/3, and tierce 1 3/5. Yeah, maybe without the octavin. Now just give us the 8 and the 2 2/3 Nazard on the swell. And you notice that he's accompanying this with the chords, on another manual. So whenever this is where we use 2 manuals together in our prelude work. If we want to bring a melody out, it goes on a separate manual from the accompaniment. That's the 8, the 2 2/3. Now try, and you can use any combination you want of these flutes and mutations. Try the 8, 4, and 1 3/5, for instance. The roar flute 8, traverse flute 4, tierce 1 3/5. See, a little different flavor of the same general character. Okay, so I can hardly emphasize enough how the flutes are used to bring out solo melody colors. And if you have just a fairly high melody that you want to have on one serene, beautiful flute, the one that will sing the best for you is the harmonic flute, 8-foot on the grate. Hear this beautiful thing, and Rulon will accompany it with strings, either on the swell or the choir. See, he's got the hard job. I got the easy one, as you figured out. Okay. Now do that with the 8 and the 4-foot, the harmonic flute 8 and 4-foot. And he's got the strings, Slishnel and the Voix Celeste 8-foot on the accompaniment on the swell, with the swell as well 4-foot cupper. But we'll talk more about this when we get to the strings. Yeah, okay. And then, that's probably enough on the flutes at this point and the function of the flute family. Now we move to the string family. And you already have heard strings and their thin sound. Rulon, pull the string on each of the manuals, if you would, the Gemshorn and the Dulcian and the Slishnel. And maybe play first the Gemshorn. I believe you were using that a few minutes ago to do a lot of your accompanying of the solo flutes on the choir. That's that lovely Gemshorn on the grate. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's a very useful stop for really soft prelude kinds of work. Then the softest of them all, if you want to come down to a whisper at the end of your prelude, just before the presiding brother stands up, you'd be on the Dulciana on the choir. Now, is that with shades open or closed? Yeah, see, it'll go even softer than that. And you can, if you really want it ethereal and beautiful, you can add the Dulciana Celeste to it. Celestes, we find we have them with the strings on the swell. The swell strings, the solitional has a companion celeste, and the choir string, the Dulciana. And that increases the etherealness of the sound. You don't use a stop labeled celeste by itself, but you use it with its companion stop. So he's drawing the Dulciana. If you're still on page 9, he's drawing the Dulciana on the choir and the Dulciana Celeste. Of course, we're looking at the yellow stops now. You can get a lot of mileage out of a string and its celeste for your prelude work for stake conference. A little stringier string, beautiful string with celeste would be the solitional 8-foot, and the voix celeste on the swell, if you look over in the swell jam. This is kind of the quintessential string sounds, strings. Okay, and on the choir there is also the viola. It's a stringier string too. The viola works pretty well with the Dulciana and the Dulciana Celeste. Give us a phrase or two, Rulon, if you would, with all three of those 8-foot strings on the choir. See a little different character than the strings on the swell. A good deal of edge still, but a little bit more body. And something that we won't talk much about is the pedal and balancing pedals to the manuals. But you have examples of that when you get to this console. Well, you can see them in all of the 12 combinations in the preset memory, and we'll get to how to get to that in just a minute. Okay, then that takes us to the delicious spicy family, the reed family. And there are two functions for the reeds. One is to add fire to an organ ensemble. So, Rulon, if you would please draw that great principal chorus again, 8 through mixture. And again, I'd say go back to your stop jams, 8 and 9, and look on them. He's going to draw the principal 8 on the great, the octave 4, the 12th 2 2/3, the 15th 2-foot, and the forniture. Yeah, okay, so that's the sort of sound that we'd be using as the backbone of sound for a big hymn for stake conference like Redeemer of Israel or Spirit of God or Praise to the Lord the Almighty or Now Let Us Rejoice, How Firm a Foundation. If you want to add some fire to that, you'd add an 8-foot reed, an 8-foot trumpet. Now the reeds are in red, aren't they? And let's add the 8-foot trumpet on the swell to that great principal chorus. So this 8-foot trumpet you'd pull on the left jam, right, under swell, and then you'd couple that with swell to great coupler. If you look at your very last page, page 10, you have a sketch of the coupler rail on this instrument. All of the intermanual couplers that couple one division to the other, in other words, swell to great, choir to great, swell to choir, and swell, great, and choir to pedal, all of them are above the swell manual, not on the draw knobs. And so can you see where the swell to great coupler is? It's in that middle group of about 7 couplers, it's second from the left. So he's putting swell to great 8-foot. Then that will bring that 8-foot trumpet on the swell down and couple it to the principal chorus on the great. First, the rule in the chord or two on the trumpet. Okay, so that's going to add that 8-foot reed. trumpet of the swell, to the principal chorus. There's the great principal chorus without it. Now with it, yeah, there we go, with it. Again without it. With it. Okay, and that fire we want to add to a big hymn, particularly as we progress through the hymn, and especially at least for the last verse. And in fact, we don't have to be limited to just an 8-foot reed. We can add, we have reed choruses. On the swell is the quintessential reed chorus. The contra trumpet 16, you see that? If you draw that, Rulon. And the clarion 4-foot. I'll draw both of those, add them to the 8-foot. Now this is the swell reed 16, 8, and 4. Contra trumpet 16, 8-foot trumpet, and 4-foot clarion. Okay, now, Rulon, imagine the last verse of a hymn. Rulon, play for us on the great principal chorus again, and then couple that 16, 8, and 4 reeds in from the swell. Here's without the reeds. Here. Okay, now missing is the 32-foot. If you have 16-foot reeds going on in the manual, you could stand to have a 32-foot reed in the pedal. Pull that contra trombone 32-foot on in the pedal and play us a few chords with that whole sound. Last verse of the hymn. Okay, see, your congregations deserve to be lifted by that for the last verse of your stake conference hymns. And you'll find it's all in the preset memories, and we'll illustrate that in a minute. So it's easy for you to get at it, the push of a button. Oh. Okay, I wouldn't think of playing a congregational hymn for general conference unless they were singing How Gentle God's Commands, or something subdued, which has yet to happen. I wouldn't think of not having that sound for the last verse of the congregational hymn for a conference. Okay, now let's look to the other function of the reeds, the red ones, the solo melody colors. So this is another possibility. We've already explored that flutes with mutations are very useful for solo melody colors, right? Well, so also are the reeds, particularly the clarinet. You see that in red on the choir? That's the clarinet. Play us a little bit of that, Rulon. And he's accompanied with the soft foundation, of course, on the other manual. Yeah, play it now an octave lower. Listen, unlike the flutes, the solo reeds are good, especially the clarinet, down in the lower region if you want a tenor melody. Sometimes I think they're the very most beautiful, in fact, the reeds, particularly the clarinet in the tenor range. The Chalamot range, as the clarinets in the orchestra would call it. Yeah, see, a clarinet should be good down to the last drop. And other of the reeds that can be used for solo melody colors are the oboe on the swell. Accompany that with those strings, the Dulciana and Celeste, if you would, Rulon on the choir. Here's the oboe on the swell. Which brings up the fact that you can color solo reeds with the flutes. If you wanted a little more roundness to the reed solo melody, add an 8-foot flute to it. Or if you want to color it a little more like an English horn, add the 4-foot flute to it. Here's that oboe with the 4-foot flute instead. See, so you can shape these solo melody reeds, oboe and the clarinet with the flutes. Illustrate that principle with the clarinet, Rulon, as well. Here's the clarinet by itself. Now, if you want more body to the clarinet, add the 8-foot Borden. How about you want that clarinet to be a little more like an English horn? Add instead the 4-foot flute, the 4-foot capo flute. You can do the same thing, by the way, on your organs in your wards. Yeah, see, so we think in families. The flutes, think about this. They have a lot of fundamental, they don't have a lot of brightness, and so they're accentuating the fundamental of their sound. And so if you want to add a particular harmonic, you see, to color a reed stop, a solo melody reed, the flutes are the ideal thing to do it because they're not going to give you a lot of bright harmonic spread. They will accentuate that particular fundamental. So if you want to add more body to a reed, you add an 8-foot flute to it. If you want to add a little more piquant brightness to it, kind of like the English horn does, add a 4-foot flute to it. Or if you want to have both the body and a little more brightness, you can add the 8 and the 4-foot flute to the solo melody reed. Do that with the clarinet. There by itself. So there's with the 8 and the 4-foot flute. Yeah. In effect, you've made the clarinet a little louder if you need it to be. Yeah. It's still good in the tenor range. So, have I spent enough time selling you the clarinet and the oboe? You know the voix humaine or vox humana on the swell. Some of vox humanas on organs have permanent tremulants in them, and so they're no good for this. But this one does not. You can have it without trem. Play a little bit on the vox humaine for a very soft solo reed. It's lovely. And if you have to use the softest stop on the choir to accompany it, the Dulciana, maybe the Celeste, with the swell open and the choir probably closed. You see, okay. Now, the other louder reeds, the trumpets, and even the solo tuba can be used for melodies also. If you need a strong melody, line punched out, probably stronger than you would need for most of your prelude work, but maybe for your postlude, then you could use a reed such as, say, the trumpet 8 on the grate, and maybe Rulon, maybe accompany that with, I don't know, maybe the principals 8 and 4, maybe 2-foot on the choir. You see how it's helpful to know the 4 families of organ tone. You think in families, you don't have to worry or care much about what the individual name of the stop is, as long as you know the function of the 4 families and what family the stops are in. And here it's easy to see, you just tell by the color. Okay, that's the horizontal tuba, right? That was the horizontal tuba. Yeah, and what would you? What were you using for accompaniment? Was that the great principal chorus? You see, so that tuba is meant to really sound out over things. Now, you won't find a lot of use of that for a stake conference, certainly not in your prelude or your postlude, certainly not to introduce even the biggest hymn. Maybe for the final chorus of the Spirit of God, if you want to solo the melody out on a big reed, and we'll show you how to do that. But mostly you want to make sure that you don't have that stop drawn, or you'll scare yourself and everybody, unless, as I say, you have built up to it and the full congregation singing the last verse of a big hymn. Surely.
When you use that, it sounds just, obliterating it there, but out there it sounds fine.
Yes. Yeah, good point. That's right. Yeah. Kind of takes a little of the hair off the top of your head up here, but again, not out there. I mean, look how close you are to it, just, a few yards. And out there, even the people on the front row are several times as far away from it as you are. Okay, enough on the four families of organ tone. We've got to move on. I spent a lot of time on that, but I wanted to, because that really is the meat and potatoes of what I want you to go away from here. The rest of it is detail relating to this instrument. And we need to talk a little bit about accessing the preset memory combinations. As some of you know, how many of you have already played this instrument for a conference? You may have known, this is just for you, this little comment, that there was a preset memory, if you will, labeled examples. The name has been changed to preset mem. Okay? Preset mem. Okay, so what you might have become familiar with on examples is now labeled preset mem. Okay, how do you get to the preset memory combinations? And I think all of you are probably familiar, most of you, with organs that have a preset memory set up with a hymn build-up. At least all of our organs, Allen's and Rogers and Johannes's in the last decade or so, have a preset memory with a hymn ensemble build-up, and then with the different sounds, solo and accompaniment sounds for prelude. And here we have the same thing. On the preset memory, we have generals 1 through 6, a hymn build up for congregational hymn, and 7 through 12 are the prelude registrations. So how do we get to that? Okay, please look at this control display unit, the CD unit, which you've got on page 3. It should be facing your page 2, and we're on section 6. Here's how you access that. You press the button under organist. You see that, O-R-G-N-S-T, and the button is down at the bottom, pretty much directly under O-R-G-N-S-T, okay? Then you will scroll with the knob. See the knob? You'll scroll to preset mem so that the cursor is pointed at preset mem. And then you'll press the button under enter. Now you don't see enter there, but the screen labels will have changed when you first hit the organist button, and you'll find that you have enter under, which one is it under, Rulon? The middle one or the left one? Did you hit, I should have asked him to do this with me. Do you still have the home screen up? Did you hit the button under organist? Okay, now do you see enter on the screen? Enter. Is that the left, on the left or the middle of the? Oh, it's all the way to the right, so it's where organist was. So you hit that same button, which is now under enter, and then that should bring up the preset mem, so that when you hit the combinations, it will be what's set up on the preset memory. Don't forget to do the enter step. Scrolling to preset mem and getting a cursor on it's not enough. You have to hit the button under enter before the memory that you have scrolled to is actually operable. Okay? Now, before we go to the preset memory, so that's just a 3-set step. And if you get the screen screwed up and it's not saying what it should on the home and can't get to it, turn the organ off and turn it back on, and it'll boot up to the home screen. Okay? Okay, now before we talk about the preset memory, let's cover how you access your own memory combinations. Because you're certainly welcome to set up your own combinations for your conferences, and how you do that is similar, if a little bit more involved than just accessing the preset memory. Now back to the home screen. You again press the button under organist, O-R-G-N-S-T. Look at your control display unit on the right page. Then you scroll to with the knob to guest A or guest B. These are where you can set your own memories. Now there are 122 memories under guest A, and there's 102 additional memories in the guest B folder. So you should, yeah. Okay. Correction. Oh, okay. So you'll go in, scroll with the knob to guest A or B, take your pick, then hit enter, and then scroll with the knob to the memory that you desire to use. And there'll be 121 possibilities. I would suggest that you probably, since most of them are empty at this point, find one that doesn't have anything set on it, then you know you're not setting over somebody else's combinations. If you went to 77 and someone had set something on it, no, it wouldn't. You would just push the pistons and discover that something had been set. No, it will not tell you that something's been set on it. Okay? No, I don't think you're going to have a sheet with your name and number, but I'll tell you what you will do in just a second. It's down a step coming up. Good point. So set your combinations on any one of those generals or divisional pistons on the memory that you choose. Okay? And then before you leave the organ, I would take a sheet of paper and leave a note on the console. Please do not change guest A, or if you set it in guest B, whichever, memory number, whatever memory you set on, until, and then write the month, day, and year the day after your stake conference. You know, the day after you're done with it. Okay? And then that should alert anyone coming in that don't, to choose a memory other than that one. And you should be safe until your stake conference is over. Then when your stake conference is over, you might as well take that little note and tear it up. And so that way there might be 3 or 4 notes, although I confess I've only found one note on the console once. That was only 1 week in the several weeks I've been coming here. I guess people I don't know if they're mostly using the preset memories, or which is fine, or if they're setting up a memory, they're just hoping nobody sets over it. But I'd surely leave a little note saying, don't change guest A memory 69 or whatever, or guest B memory 88 till after such and such a date. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Yeah, take the note down when you're done at the end of your stake conference. Just take the note with you and throw it away, so we don't get a lot of expired notes on the console. And as far as how you set the individual generals and divisionals, it's the same as on your organ at home. Once you're in your memory, then you push the setter button. If you look at, let's see, page 7. Look at page 7 for a moment. The setter button is at the extreme left under the lower manual. You see that if you have a magnifying glass, you can see it says set. You see the three rows of pistons. The leftmost piston under the lower manual says set. That's the setter button. If you hold that in, then whatever stops you have pulled, you may capture on any one of those 12 generals or any one of the 5 divisionals for each of the divisions. And then you release the setter button and the piston on, or general or divisional on which you've set it, and it will be captured there for your use later on. Okay, now let's look at the preset memory combinations and run through, the time's flying here, run through illustrations of them. And the first part we want to cover, and the most important, because the most important thing we do as organists in a worship service is accompany the singing of the congregation, that is, accompany the hymns. Okay, so now we're on preset memory. Back to preset memory and general 1. And it tells you here, if you're looking on page 2, item 8, number 1 is what's on general 1. And you all understand where general 1 is found? If you don't, look back on page 7 for a moment. You see the generals labeled to the left. They're above and below the great manual. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Okay, we're going through those combinations. The generals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now. And on general 1 is set foundations 8 and 4. So that means principals and flutes, and maybe a string or two, including the swell and choir coupled to the great. So when we're playing for congregational hymns, you play on the great manual, both hands, on the great manual only, and the expression pedals. I can't emphasize this enough. The swell and the great shoes, expression pedals, should be wide open and left there for all of your congregational hymns, even if you're singing Silent Night at Christmas time. Okay? And if you are singing Silent Night at Christmas time, this preset memory, general number 1, which has the foundations 8 and 4, including swell and great coupled, would be what you would introduce and play the softest of congregational hymns for a stake conference, in which we have, if the hall's not filled, it's more than half filled. That we would use. Okay, so here we go. Silent Night, or How Gentle God's Commands, or whatever. General 1. Okay, do we make the point? Combination 1 in the preset memory is for only soft hymns that only occasionally, rarely maybe, will you have for stake conference. Normally you'll be starting to introduce the hymn with at least level 2, which adds the great 2 2/3 and the swell and choir 2-foots. Now give us a little on number 2, if you would. So you would introduce the hymn with that. But by the time you get to the first verse, the very first verse, I would go to 3, which adds the great 2-foot and the swell mixture. So there's the first verse of your average congregational stake conference hymn, okay? 2 for the introduction, 3 for the first verse, or you could introduce it with 3 and stay on 3 for the first verse. Okay? Then step 4 adds the great mixture, and you ought to be on the average stake conference congregational hymn to 4 by the second verse, I'd say. Okay? And then for a later verse, third verse, you always normally have at least 3 verses, sometimes 4 verses. Third verse, 5, go to 5. Adds the swell reeds. And the congregation will build with you. The congregation will build with you. No, they will increase their intensity from verse to verse. I wouldn't introduce the hymn with 5, but I'd be there by the time I was to at least the third verse. And then for the final verse of a big hymn, 6. If it's a hymn such as the Spirit of God, you could pull this out for the last verse or save it for the chorus, certainly by the chorus. Here we go, 6. Wouldn't it be a shame to not have that sound for the last verse of your congregational hymn, to have 1,600 people go away without having that inspiring experience of singing the last verse to that? Okay, don't be scared. Just remember, it's going to sound like it's going to blow you away when you're rehearsing here by yourself in a quiet room. But it's a whole different situation when you have a lot of people. Now, one other little addenda to that, number 6. I said something about, maybe for the last chorus, if you're really adventuresome and want to solo the melody out for the last chorus, like the Spirit of God, I have set, and this you'll see it when we get to the preset memories for the divisionals, but on choir, the highest choir divisional is choir number 5. You see where that is if you're looking at page 7? That'd be under the bottom manual. See in the middle, number 5. That has the horizontal tuba on it. So if you that means it'll sound on the choir. But the nice thing about this horizontal tuba is the boys have made it so it doesn't couple anywhere. So it's not going to couple through to the grate where you're playing the hymn. It'll only sound on the choir. So you can bring that melody down, if you're really adventuresome. You don't have to do this. Most of the time I'd say don't. But you could get this effect for the last verse, the last chorus of the Spirit of God. And so on, okay? Okay, let's move to the preset memory combinations for prelude. This is a little bit more involved, but I've tried to put some of the prettiest and favorite sounds of this instrument, some of which you might not find on these. Now, 7 through 12, the prelude sounds kind of in general build a little bit. But the idea of that is not a build-up so much as 1 through 6 for the congregational hymns. And, of course, 1 through 6 are the bigger sounds, obviously, because they're congregational. You might say, well, why didn't you then have the smaller sounds, 1 through 6, and the bigger sounds, 7 through 12? It's because as you sit at that console, you can see 1 through 6 most easily, the congregational ones, okay? 7 through 12 is down under the great manual. You might have to lean back, a little bit to see those. Okay, so here's number 7. Now, let me explain for each of these. The idea is that on one manual there will be the accompaniment sound. That is where you'll be playing the chordal accompaniment, and it's indicated by ACC. So if you look at General 7 under Section 9, which manual is the accompaniment manual? The choir, isn't it? ACC, you see the Dulciana and Celeste. Okay, so that means that what's on the other two manuals, the great and the swell, can sound as a soft solo melody under this very soft accompaniment. There's the oboe on the swell, and that's with the accompaniment on the choir. And here's with the Gemshorn on the great, the other solo possibility on General 7. Okay, And then you'll see sometimes it says, or both hands. Actually, always on the Great Manual, it'll say both hands, because the sound that's on the Great Manual, on 7 through 12, these prelude registrations, can either be for a solo line or with both hands on the same manual. You see? But not the oboe, not on the swell. You wouldn't, that's only for solo. You wouldn't use that for both hands. Okay, now we go to 8, and we still have the accompaniment on which manual? On the choir. We added the 4-foot coupler, so we're going to have the Dulcian and Celeste 8 and 4-foot, soft strings 8 and 4. And on the swell, see, we have a solo melody with the flutes, flute 8 and mutation, 8, 2 and 2/3. We already talked about this. Just play a phrase, Rulon, if you would. See, lovely for a very soft prelude sound. On the great, the 8-foot melody with the flute 8-foot, that 8-foot harmonic flute, which is so gorgeous. And or you could, if you had a section that you wanted both hands to be on a sound a little more present than the accompaniment on the choir, well, you could do both hands on the great. Okay. Lovely. Now to General 9, which manual will have the accompaniment. If you're used to and just want to have to operate one expression pedal, there is, look at page 7 again. There's a handy dandy at the right of the top row, that'd be just under the top manual. There is a thumb piston called all swells on. If you push that, and when you operate the middle shoe, which is the swell shoe, it will operate the choir expression as well. Okay? The great is not under expression here, as you understand it, not enclosed in boxes. We don't want to get into that, but the great stops will always be the volume that you show, and the expression pedals do not affect them. So you see, if you don't have the expression pedals wide open for congregational settings 1 through 6, they're not going to be right, because the swell and choir are not going to be loud enough, and when the reeds come in, they won't be loud enough, because it's got to be wide open. Okay, so now then number 9, accompaniment is on the swell strings, and here's with the clarinet. This is General 9, clarinet melody. Okay, and you've already heard that. We've illustrated it before. The great principal 8-foot. A principal 8-foot can make a lovely, not only to build ensembles, but to sing a melody. And it's good down in the tenor range too. And these other 10 and 11 and 12 will build on that. Okay, here's 10. Accompaniment is still on the swell, right? But this adds the 4-foot strings. Here's the great. This is both of the 8-foot principals, the diapason and the principal 8-foot. Wonderful singing, whatever range you're in. Play that an octave lower, down in the tenor region. That's a particularly reverent and wonderful sound. I use it a lot at the conference center for my state conference, general conference preludes. And on the choir, then, we've got flute mutations, 8, 4, 2 and 2/3, and 1 3/5. Again, this will be good for melodies in the usual range, which is above middle C. Let's hear that on General 10. And can you hear that a soft 32-foot, the contrabordon comes in the pedal on this, a 10 and on 11 and 12 as well. That's what that 32-foot contrabordon in the pedal is for. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Now 11 adds the left hand accompaniment is still on the swell manual, right? ACC just adds the flute to the strings. Now here's the great with all of the foundations, all of the 8-foot foundations. So that would be both principals. It would be the harmonic flute and it would be the Gemshorn. So that's with both hands on that, which is a sound that you might use for a little while in a prelude. Here, now use it as a solo with accompaniment on the swell. It's 8-foot foundations all together, such a wonderful sound, and it'll provide a great sound for congregation, for preludes. Try the choir now. The choir is flute 16, 8, 4, and 2 for the melody. Yeah, there's that kind of signature tabernacle organ sound. Okay, there it is on General 11. Melody on the choir, accompaniment on the swell. And then finally, General 12, this is all of the strings, the juiciest of string sounds coupled into the choir with the voix humaine as well into the mix. So the accompaniment is on the choir now. See that? ACC on the choir, and the melody would be on the grate. Again, the foundation's 8 foot with the 4-foot flute added. So here's maximum celestial kingdom on this organ. Okay, and now with some melody. I all my favorite pieces Rulon's playing. I don't know how he knew. Okay, so you could be up to this level before you get through your prelude, a couple of minutes before the conference is to start, and then come down so that the prelude winds down to the, something like General 2 or General 1, maybe just before the presiding brother stands up. Okay, turn over to page 4, will you? And we have preset memory divisionals. Combinations. I just wanted to quickly show you what they are. There are 5 of them, as you may have noticed on your diagram on page 7. There are 5 divisionals under the swell, 5 under the grate, 5 under the choir manual, and 5 for the pedal. You see the pedal divisionals are over to, of course, to the left toe, bottom row. Okay? And some of you might ask, well, there are additional generals. There are more than 12 for the toe, has 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Why don't you set up something on them? Well, I figure we want them where they're as convenient as possible, which is with the thumb. If you want to set up things on the toe generals, that's fine. Do it on your own memory. The truth is I have set up something on a couple of them. But, if you want to discover what they are, actually they're fuller, even organ ensemble than the number 6. If your hall is really filled and you just have to have something more than 6 to get through that last verse of the Spirit of God. Okay, but I wasn't even going to mention that. Okay, now the divisionals here, and maybe the thing for you to do is to just stay with page 7 in front of you as Rulon plays through these. First of all, the swell divisionals, and they're all set up so that they're just a build-up through the division. The swell one being the softest as string and celeste, and then on up through to 5, which is more or less full division. So here's swell 1, string and celeste. So if you're using the preset memory, and you're on memory, who knows what, 7 or 8 or something, and you know that you need a sound that's not on the preset generals, but is on one of these divisionals, then when you come to that point, you just hit the divisional. Here's swell 2, which is foundations 8 with the 4-foot flute. And then swell 3, which adds the principal 4 and 2. Then swell 4, which adds the mixture and the 8-foot oboe, the light reed. And then swell 5 is full swell, more or less, with the reed 16, 8, and 4. It's a wonderful swell. What a wonderful swell. And the beautiful thing about the swell, too, is I love the sound of the shades opening on the swell. Since we're on that sound, just for me, close the swell and play on it and gradually open the swell and then close it again. It's like a full organ in the distance that grows and then goes back away. And it's in perfect tune. I mean, that's worthy of the best day at the Tabernacle on Temple Square, Salt Lake. I have to be careful when I speak of the Tabernacle. Golly, as though it's not confusing enough to have 2 Christiansens. It's confusing to have 2 Temple Squares and 2 Tabernacles and everything. But anyway, it's wonderful. And this room, they, as you can imagine, have state-of-the-art heating and cooling systems that keep the temperature as steady as possible, and that's good news for the organ as well. Although I have to say, with 3 state conferences, filling this thing 3 times during a day, there isn't enough time, so they tell me, for the cooling or heating system to completely recover. Well, the cooling system, because bodies warm things up. And so if you're the 3rd state conference of the day and the organ sounds a little bit ripe, it's because all the body heat here is more than with 3 congregations through the whole day, is a little more than even this system can recover. Nothing we can do about that. Okay, great. Through the great divisionals. 1 is the Gems horn. And then 2 adds the flute. And 3 adds the diapason and principal. So this is full foundations, 8 foot. And then 4 adds the 4 foots and 2 2/3. And then 5 adds the 2 foot and the mixture. Okay, and then on the choir, now you hit choir 3. So you have that. Then choir 4 adds to that the upper work, the 2 foot principal and the 1 1/3. Okay, and then 5, instead of adding to that, this is the one exception. It's that horizontal tuba. Only for the most adventuresome on the last chorus of the Spirit of God, if the house is full, okay? Then the pedals, divisionals, and of course, once again, those are accessed by the toe studs, right, on the lower right, pedal 1 through 5, and they start out with the soft 16 and 8 and gradually build up through, not full pedal, but through a pretty solid pedal with the 32-foot resultant. Okay, now then that takes us to section section 11, which should be on about page 6. I wanted to talk a few minutes about record and playback on this organ, because I think that you may find it valuable, one of your rehearsal sessions, after you've figured out your registrations and know about how you want to do your music, to record some of your playing, and then have the organ play it back while you go down in the congregation and just walk through the hall a little bit. And then you hear the organ as they hear it, and not as you hear it up here. Although you hear it pretty wonderfully balanced up here, if somewhat louder than out there. And so that's the reason I'm going into this record playback a little bit, is just for your own rehearsal purposes. If you want to hear what you're practicing, if you want to hear what it sounds like out in the hall yourself, then here's how you can do that. Okay, So number 11 on page 6, recording a new song into the ICS 4000 internal memory. Press, now we're looking at the record play button panel, and you have it there. That is what is on the upper left of the organ console. The screen that you looked at, you know, to get into the memories and all of that is on the upper right. Okay? This record play button panel is on the upper left. Okay, so step 1, press and hold the record button. Press and hold it. Okay, you see the record button? It's over on the right. So you press that and hold it. Momentarily, while you're still holding it, press the play button as well, and then release both buttons. Then the CDU, that's the readout on the other side, which you have on page 3, the CDU on the right side, control display unit, will display the next available song name, and in the format song 001 or song 02 or song 03. In other words, if the tracks 1, 2, and 3, songs 1, 2, and 3, or 4, or whatever have been recorded, it will show the next one that's available that has nothing recorded on it. So you don't have to worry that you're recording over anything of anybody's, okay? So it'll show the next available, and it'll indicate that you're in the record mode. Okay, so actually it's been in the record mode the whole time. So Rulon, play a few things. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, then press the stop button when finished. You see it says start, stop. That's the button you push. It says play above it and says start, stop below it. Okay, now then to get playback, you see the file minus and file plus buttons on the left of that button panel. If you hit one or the other of those buttons on that record play button panel, it will display the list of songs in the memory, and you can select the one that you want to hear. And where will it display them? It'll display them over again on the right CDU screen, okay? And so he can, if it doesn't display song 5, he can, you know, plus up to 5 or minus down to 5. Okay, now you're to song 5. Okay, be sure that any expression and crescendo shoes are in the closed position. You know, if you want to have, maybe you move the expression pedals in the course of what you recorded, and that's fine. The organist recorded it, but it won't faithfully reproduce it unless you have them shut when you play back. Okay, so just close them, all the shoes closed. Then press the play button. That's a good point. The crescendo pedal, basically leave it alone. But if you're a choir, accompanying a choir, and the choir, you know, can increase in volume of a crescendo in the course of just a few measures, from something quite soft up to medium to even full organ, and then come back down. See, now that's full crescendo pedal. And so, you know, it's much too bothersome to have to hit pistons to build the organ up or draw stops by hand. So you use the crescendo pedal. That's for choir accompaniment. Yeah, I haven't taken the time to talk about the percussions on this organ, which are the chimes. There's a digital and real set of chimes. This is the cymbal stern. If you hear this tinkling going on, it's because you have activated the cymbal stern. Do you see it's a draw knob on the grate division, bottom of the left-hand column? That you will probably not be using for your stake conferences. That's more for conference work, but you'll hear it tomorrow night. Rulon is going to use it. As well as other of the percussions. There are two sets of chimes. You'll see one is on the grate and one is on the choir. And then there's also a 8-foot harp, 4-foot celesta on the choir. They're all digital except for the chimes on the grate. Okay, well, I'm sorry we haven't had time to talk about everything we might have, but I think we got through everything we intended to. And I would say just enjoy this wonderful instrument, and you'll find more and more ways to use it effectively. I want to say one last little thing. Many of you will not be used to changing stops maybe during the course of a congregational hymn. The way you do it from verse to verse is you figure out, and you find that you can do this, take the last chord of the verse with the right hand, all of it, just the right hand in the pedal. And then your left hand can, as you hit that last chord, glance over and be in readiness over the next general you want to hit. If you're going from 4 to 5, say, it would be prepared over 5. And then when you release it, for the breath, you hit 5, bring your left hand back, and you're ready for the next verse. To build up from verse to verse, go from whatever general you're on to the next general up, you take the last chord of the verse with the right hand so that your left hand is free to be positioned over the general that you want to build to. By the time you release that last chord, then you release the chord, hit the general for the build-up, and then you're set to go for the next verse. If you wait until you get to the end of the verse before you go over and find that general and come back, you might not be ready for, when the conductor starts the next verse. We've got a state choir that needs to rehearse now, and so thank you so much.